Sometimes when it comes to certain plot points and character developments, we all share an emotional response. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. It's me, Amanda. Today we're counting down another top 10 superhero moments that fans hated. Take the word hate here with a grain of salt. I don't like to use the word hate myself. It's a strong word, but you know, some of these points do in fact elicit that kind of strong response from some fans. And occasionally, very occasionally, I will say, myself included. Which superhero film were you simply not here for? Let us know down below. Terrible superhero film moments for sure. Number 10. Wally West returns. When Wally returned in New 52, it was a rough time. Wally, prior to this reset, had a whole family and was in general one of the happiest heroes around. Wally has always kind of had this happy-go-lucky vibe to him. He has problems, but overall he feels like a very optimistic hero to me. However, times changed when he lost his family in the New 52. The really awful part of this was Wally would remember his family despite everyone else having forgotten what happened in the prior continuity. As a result, Wally as a character would have weird things thrown at him and in general just end up having a really rough time. It was a terrible thing for DC to have done to the character, and many Wally fans mourn the loss of the state of Wally West's life with Linda prior to the reset. Also, let's add in the fact that this also happened after the fact that we were deprived of Wally for so long, which, you know, DC being like, we got Wallace, which Wallace is great, not knocking it, but he's not Wally West, that's all. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we're doing here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to let us know that you love us by clicking that like. Just one click, it's all it takes. Number 9. Injustice Aftermath. I saw someone on part 1 to this list mention in the comments that they personally were not a fan of Injustice and actually really did not enjoy it. But that's not actually what we're focusing on in this point. Although, I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, there are people out there that don't like it at all. Although I'm sure some were not fans of the Injustice universe and story, most people in general did like it. But I think what many of us can agree on is that we don't like what it did to the Superman status quo. Injustice made a very evil version of Superman popular, as in this universe, Superman ends up becoming the villain, a superhero who after losing pretty much everything, decides to control the world and forcefully shape it by ruling it, in essence becoming an all-powerful fascist dictator. What this did to the Superman landscape afterwards was basically create a wave of evil Superman, with everyone wanting to, in essence, capitalize on the success of Injustice by creating their own version of an evil Superman. Number 8. Retcon Fate. Aunt May is one of those characters who just seems to live pretty much forever. This woman has been deathly ill more times than I can personally recall, I'm sure. It's been a lot. She also at this point has to be super old, as back in the 60s, the 1960s, she was a very elderly woman. How old is Aunt May at this point? Aunt May is Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man's aunt, who in essence raised the young man. So of course we can't let anything happen to this sweet old lady. Still, there have been moments when it's been written that Aunt May does die. In fact, at one point she like straight up did die. Imagine that, an old woman who finally passes on. I mean, it seems to make a lot of sense actually, but no, we could not let this happen. It would later be retconned that Aunt May did not in fact die, but that this was all a ruse as part of a Norman Osborn harebrained scheme involving an actress who was about to die and apparently was so method that she took on the role of playing Aunt May and dying for real as a part of her final acting gig. I don't know about you, but that's pretty ridiculous. Even for comics, that's pretty ridiculous, guys. Number 7. Sony's Venom. I know some people really like this movie, so for some, my inclusion of Venom here will be a controversial choice, but for me, although I wouldn't use the term hate to describe how I feel about this film, this was definitely a movie that had some issues. Mainly, many fans were upset that they were doing Venom without Spider-Man, which admittedly doesn't make a ton of sense. And although they tried to make it make sense in the movie, there still begs the question of why does Venom have spider-like abilities in this universe if there's no Spider-Man? I guess just because the symbiote's an alien? I don't know. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. I agree. Number 6. Damian Wayne's fate. While there are many fans of Damian Wayne out there who over time came to love the character as Grant Morrison built him up, they were likewise disappointed when Morrison decided to then kill Damian. A lot of people were simply not fans of this because they felt that Grant Morrison simply didn't want to share the character they had created. Damian initially was stubborn and annoying, the son of Batman that Bruce had never really known that he'd had with Talia al Ghul. Having been raised mainly by Talia and trained by her and the League of Assassins, assassins up until the point that Bruce first met him, and then basically being left on Bruce's doorstep by his mother, Damian of course had a major attitude problem to start and believed that he was basically above almost anything Batman or the other former Robins wanted to teach him. Over time though, he came to respect the rest of the Bat family and was even beginning to really fit in when he died. He wouldn't stay dead for long, but the idea of losing him still did not sit well with fans, especially after we were made to love him, you know? Number 5. Short-lived leader. I think one of the moments that really rubs me the wrong way personally is when Monica Rambeau was forced to relinquish her spot as team leader for the Avengers. This is just something I don't vibe with because Monica was really only team leader for a very short while, and she was basically robbed of her position by a villain who had infiltrated the team. How terrible is that? I feel like there have been multiple moments in the comics where Monica has gotten snubbed, and I personally would just love to see her as a leader of the Avengers team for a more lengthy period. I'm also hopeful that we might get to see her take on the role of team leader in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which could be really cool. I guess we'll have to wait until we get more information on the Marvels to have a sense for what the MCU holds in regards to her character's future. Number 4. Abandoned in the asylum. I never would have thought this would have happened to Wonder Woman, who is usually loved by so many, but this is a thing that happened. And who's to blame? Of course, seemingly Steve Trevor, who drops Diana off at a mental facility and leaves her there without explaining that yeah, she's actually Wonder Woman. So everyone treating her there literally thinks she is insane for imagining that she is Wonder Woman, when she actually is, and that actually isn't what she needs to be treated for. She does need some help at this point, but not in that department. Irresponsible, if you ask me. Downright irresponsible. Of course, Diana would get out, but in my mind, it's still a weird plot point, Steve choosing not to or simply forgetting to mention that. Number 3. Depowered. Although I'm still of the mind that this plot point is leading us somewhere bigger, I do not give up on my dreams of Franklin getting repowered and being revealed as having lost his powers as part of some much larger purpose or plot. We aren't just there yet. And when this went down in Fantastic Four, with Franklin also being revealed as an imposter mutant, let's just say fans were pretty heartbroken. And some of them were pretty mad too. I wasn't mad, I was just kind of like, interesting. Still waiting to see where that's going. I hope it's going somewhere. Number 2. Sony's Carnage. Oh boy. While Venom had at least some redeeming moments and elements and had a sense of fun when it came to the film, Carnage pretty much lost any charm that the Venom franchise had going for it. Let There Be Carnage was a Venom sequel that introduced Venom's powerful foe, Carnage. Carnage is the offspring of Venom, who ends up bonding with host Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer. Upon the two forming Carnage, they break out of prison and wreak havoc on the world. In the comic, this causes Venom and Spider-Man to team up in order to stand a chance against Carnage. However, we once again attempted to do a Venom movie without Spider-Man, so instead of Maximum Carnage, we got Let There Be Carnage, a story that weighs the potential of Carnage as a recurring villain and spends most of its time being extremely cheesy. Not even the appearance of Shriek, someone who I was generally excited to see on the big screen, could save this film for me. And while you might think Carnage isn't a superhero, so this actually isn't a superhero moment, Amanda, Sony is basically trying to sell us Venom as a hero without any of the character development established in the comics though. And this is a sequel to Venom's film, which is why I'm counting it, because it relates to Venom, so still kind of a superhero moment. Number 1. Martha. Some people genuinely liked Batman v Superman, and honestly, I'm happy for those people. Personally, this movie kind of broke my brain. Regardless of how you felt about the entire film though, I feel like there is one scene that stuck out for a lot of us in terms of it being memorable. For most of us, maybe not in a good way. Not in a way that made a lot of sense anyways. That's right, we're talking about the scene where Batman and Superman basically call into question why they're really fighting one another when they both discover that the other's mom is also named Martha, bringing the fighting to a complete full stop. Well, really, Batman's the one that realizes this and goes through a whole thing. What I really want to know is, why does the man who shot Bruce's parents have his gun inside of Martha's pearls when he fires? It's very artistic for the shot of them breaking, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense otherwise. That's about it. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube. Bye!